we did issue 1 of the G.I. Joe comic, and we decided to make it a series, G.I. Jonesing. So we're going to talk about issue 2, the sort of, the sophomore effort of G.I. Joe, which is called Panic at the North Pole. The second Star Wars takes place on a snow planet, and the second Flash Gordon series takes place on a snow planet. So it's like G.I. Joe, it seems like that's the way to go.
Station Zero.
Yeah, Ace Station Zero. When in doubt, set your second episode in like an ice station. And also, like, the timing is probably The Thing has come out.
Yes.
John Carpenter's The Thing. And so it's got that feel of like you show up at this Arctic station that, everybody's dead. And it's like, what happened here?
The Thing came out the month before this issue.
Okay.
I looked at the release date. So literally, maybe Larry's like just in the theater and like,
yeah, and it's like, okay. Yeah, you see that a lot with these like early G.I. Joes. There's like an issue coming up where it's got the I hate snakes scene, from Raiders of the Lost Ark. You kind of start off with, we got this mystery at the North Pole. And so then it's like, we got to call the G.I. Joe team in on it. And the G.I. Joe team, when there's not a mission going on, they're just living their separate lives. So that's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of like the way every Police Academy sequel starts. You see like Tackleberry in his like normal.
Yes, that I love rounding up the gang, like rounding the crew up,
and so you get a little glimpse of what their like regular life is.
So you got Stalker. It looks like he's going to go hunting, but no, he's taking a picture of the deer.
Yeah, because it's like The Deer Hunter is like a relatively recent movie around this thing, and so you see he's got this deer in his scopes. And you assume he's going to shoot it, but it's like he is going to shoot it, but with his camera. He's like a gentle warrior.
He's not for blood there. Mm-hmm. And then you got Breaker. Looks like these folks are angling on a 3-way with Breaker.
Yeah, Breaker. Well, because
he's a sex machine.
It's geek chic. Like they're like, who's this nerd who keeps showing up in the computer lab, running these experiments? I want to get to know him, and maybe you can, help me out.
Both of them are like...
And the art, like, in that panel where the two technicians are kind of like deciding, like, kind of divvying up Breaker between the two of them, it looks very Ditko-esque. Like, they look very Ditko-esque. In fact, the woman on the right looks a little like Peter Parker. Like, it looks like a little bit of a cross between Peter Parker and Mary Jane. But yeah, that was kind of interesting to me that he's like... They're like, ooh, who's the hunk at the computer terminal? And being somebody who's like interested in computers and maybe a little bit adept at computers was like enough to like kind of set you apart and make like it's like, ooh, you like computer. Where now it's just like you wouldn't think like everybody uses computers.
And then he's like his leave is canceled, told to him on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, early internet stuff, ARPANET or whatever. And then Scarlett is doing her like she's doing like a kung fu competition, like a Karate Kid kind of thing. Like I think this is like right before Karate Kid. I think it's also like right before Revenge of the Nerds.
Yes.
So you can't quite. It's the zeitgeist rather than like pinning it on that particular thing. And then she does this like flying kick, which is kind of cool. Snake Eyes is not yet the superstar, the standout character, but he is starting to pull focus a little bit in this issue.
I noticed that.
And so he's in his sensory deprivation tank.
That always interests me. I might be interested in getting in one of those.
Still haven't done it? Okay.
I haven't done it yet, but I'm worried I'll like lose my mind or something.
Right, that's the thing.
There.
I recommend you don't do it.
I'll completely go insane.
So and then we have like the little thing of where Snake Eyes doesn't have his mask on. He doesn't have his mask on, so then it's like, and that might be the first time they kind of reference like, there's something gnarly going on under his mask, and kind of it's like a Doctor Doom kind of thing.
They get it to surprise when he turns around his butt cheeks. They're like,
and then they're off to the Arctic. They're parachuting down. It's Don Perlin doing the art this time around, not Herb Trimpe. So Don does a really nice job, and he becomes one of the one of the regular artists on the series. There's a few different artists that are kind of in rotation on this, and they're all kind of like, they have like the sort of Marvel House style, which at the time I guess was maybe like a little more generic, but now nobody draws like this anymore. So it's kind of like it's a little bit exotic now looking at like a comic drawn like this.
A classic like action movie maneuver. You see it in like Rambo. All these. It's like you're just going in there to observe. Do not engage. Do not engage.
Yeah.
Like the classic. Like
I love how they're like professionals too. They have like the jaded attitude. Like this issue does have a little bit of the sophomore slump. It's not as much of like this like just pitch perfect like bam like right on kind of comic the way like the first one was. The first one was like that. This one, it's like a little shaky here and there, but still, pretty strong. Like you're sticking around.
Oh,
you're gonna check out issue 3.
I found myself like this is still a page turner. I was like, oh man, I want to see what happens next.
Yeah, nice mystery. And then Quinn shows up. Now Quinn is one of those, like he became like a fan favorite character, and so he shows up here the first time, and he's like one of these characters. It's kind of like a very popular archetype where he's like the professional. He's like, this like
no allegiance.
Yeah, he has no allegiances, but and he follows his contract, to the letter of the law. But he, he seems to like kind of lean on the side of the good guys or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like if his job tells him that he's got to do, he's not pulling any punches.
His like coat and like those skulls on his necklace.
Yeah, he's got this like intimidating build and stuff, and like he knows his way around. There's a couple characters in the G.I. Joe comic who like never make their way into the cartoon or never make their way into like the action figures until like maybe like now there's a Quinn. I don't like maybe relatively recently. Well, I just mean like maybe as of like 2022 or something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like maybe I don't know, but definitely during like the heyday of G.I. Joe, the 80s and the 90s, they never made a Quinn action figure. And then another character that he kind of like, has his that's almost like the bad guy parallel to Quinn is Dr. Venom, who's another, like he doesn't show up yet, but he's another one who is sort of like a major character in the comics, but never makes his way into the cartoon or the toys.
That's awesome. I can't wait to for him to pop up.
So Quinn comes back. He makes a really good impression here. I do like that the comic kind of has its own thing going on. Like there's definitely crossover and carryover from the comic book to the show. And of course the show doesn't exist yet at this point. They have the comic, and then like they can run, cartoon advertisements without any limits on TV for the comic. They make an it's not an advertisement for the toy. If the TV advertisements were advertisements for the toy, they'd have to follow different rules. They wouldn't be able to show as much like animated content and stuff. They'd have to show more of like the actual toy. But because it's an ad for the comic book, it's kind of like a workaround.
That's pretty clever.
So before there's like a cartoon show, there's these like animated commercials for the comic.
That's pretty awesome.
So yeah, they go into action. They keep finding these like abandoned bases where like everybody's dead, and it's like
very much like The Thing.
Yeah.
And Quinn, I love how he gets the jump on the Joes too. He's a lot of like booby traps and like ambushes.
Sets up booby traps, and then the Joes try to do the same thing to him. They try to set up their own little booby traps, but he's a step ahead of them. He's like, that was too obvious. That was an obvious place to set up an ambush. So he always gets around. And then there's a lot of stuff of like where he'll steal the firing pins from their weapons. So like they'll have their weapons and not realize that he took the firing pins out. And that's a gimmick that comes up, a lot in G.I. Joe comics.
Taking the firing pins.
Like this is the first instance, but we're gonna see more of that.
Dynamite under the table.
Yeah. He's always like planting these explosives and stuff. Again, like the first one, you could imagine that first comic translating like beautifully into like an action movie or something.
Yeah.
And this one too.
Same with this. Yeah, definitely.
Like they made these G.I. Joe movies, and I'm a fan of the G.I. Joe movies, but like, man, you got the blueprints right here. Like if you like issue 1 would be like a classic action movie, and then this
Same with this.
would be a great sequel.
Breaker it's 82, so he's got his he's running around the Arctic with a fax machine on his back.
Yeah, this massive fax machine, basically like a mobile office where it's like a backpack, this big bulky backpack. And again, nowadays he could have all that equipment and it would be super small, super slim, but there's something design wise beautiful about this character with this big bulky stuff. I miss that because you don't get that as much in in a comic like this. And
how he has to face forward and the person's has to stand behind him working his office on his back. I love that.
Yeah, it's if you need somebody to get something out of your backpack for you.
He's got his giant cell phone. Looks like they got the dossier on Quinn.
Yeah, pretty nice. And then it's Quinn, possible alias, name unknown. It's playing off of the stats sheets,
the
cards that are on the back of the G.I. Joe toys, and it's like Snake Eyes too, where it's you don't know anything about what you do know about him, could be made up. Who knows who he is. But part of it is he follows the contract to the letter. He's super dangerous. And then Scarlet refers to him as, in quotes, a highly motivated individual, which I think is how they described Lee Harvey Oswald.
I was about to say, I'm where have I heard that before? And I was heard it somewhere before, and it wasn't related to anything good.
Right, because highly motivated individual sounds like something that somebody would put on their resume or something. But it's in this case,
it's hey, I've got Lee Harvey Oswald's resume here. He's a real self-starter. They're
he's
yikes.
Yeah.
And then I love a good you got a fire going under the wing of a crashed plane.
Yeah, and I think there's they think they see Quinn sitting by the campfire, but it's actually it's a parka over a pile of explosives. That's really nice.
They're way to go, Snake Eyes.
Yeah.
Aren't you some kind of expert? He's haha, I've got you. You've mistaken me for a pile of laundry.
Kind of leaves the G.I. Joe team to die, but it's again, he's following the letter of the law, so it's he kind of knows that they're going to get out okay.
Yeah, he's not he could easily have executed them all, but he's he doesn't.
Yeah, and if the contract had stipulated that, maybe he would have.
Yeah, this made me think of when they build the snow sled. It reminded me of an episode of MacGyver. There's these two
because they build a sled, but it's got a sail.
Oh, I love that.
And I feel like there was maybe a G.I. Joe cartoon episode where that happened too, where they were sailing,
on the ice.
Yeah, on the ice with.
That's so much fun.
Maybe
they're they got the plane seats. And they're blasting along. The MacGyver episode, he crashes in the forest in this plane with the Boys and Girls Club, and he has to get everybody to work together to he replaces the wheel of the plane with a ski to get out.
Well, I mean, speaking of MacGyver, they don't have any firing pins and they have all these explosives, but no detonator. So then they have to improvise one. So they they take the gunpowder out of their bullets and fill up a canteen with it, and then set up a rock to drop on it and stuff. Yeah.
Another MacGyver episode in an ice cave is where he has battery acid in this jar, I think, and gunpowder. And then Murdoch or the bad guys trip this wire and they swing down and smash together and explode. Just got MacGyver vibes.
Yeah, a lot of MacGyvering of things, which I think is just a side effect of Larry Hama's writing this stuff, and he's coming in with real field experience, and probably you get into situations and you need to figure out ways to improvise, and you have your training that probably goes over some of this stuff. But yeah, the G.I. Joe team keeps failing. Every time they think this guy's just too good,
They blow the ice bridge up.
And then they even have the trope of him being this giant unbeatable opponent. So somebody kicks him in the back of the head and he's
he no-sells it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. And he's toting around this huge could be a 30. See, that's another thing with the G.I. Joes. When we get the weapons and the toys, we'd be looks like Roadblock's got a 50 caliber. I'm like, no, that's a 30. Like, we would like try to ID the weapons.
Yeah,
for the
that's like a gun that Roadblock hasn't been invented yet. That toy, like, Roadblock comes around in like issue like 30 or something.
That's like his gun.
Yeah, but that's his gun, yeah.
And yeah, he's got the Rambo, like, holding the bandolier over his arm.
Yeah, I saw a Nerf gun that has that. Yeah.
I always think, like, man, where was this Nerf technology when I was little? Oh, and then this weird frequency, they're like targeting, using fear waves or some kind of like weird, like...
Yeah, like this issue, it's not Cobra. It's like Cold War stuff. It's Russia, and yeah, they have this like fear wave inducer, and that's what made everybody go nuts in the Arctic. That's what made like the American base and the Russian base made everybody there go nuts. But that's also the bit where it's like this sort of fear wave machine is where it like reminds you that it's a G.I. Joe comic. Because prior to that, it's kind of like just like sort of straight, like, I mean, it's got all these like flourishes and stuff, but it's kind of like it's kind of like straight military comics. And then you introduce that, and it's just to remind you, like, oh yeah, we have a little bit of like, you know, sci-fi goofiness.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
They talk about his contract, like what he was stipulated to do.
Yeah, and so he fulfills his contract, and then he kind of like he fucks those guys over because he left a bunch of like ammo and guns and stuff in a cave.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you where it is, and maybe you'll get there before the G.I. Joes, but that's highly unlikely.
Yeah, he's like, they're 4 miles away, you're 1 mile.
Yeah, but you know, you guys don't seem like the types that would be able to get there, you know, anytime soon. And then I love this final part because we don't get like the G.I. Joes show up and then there's a big battle or whatever. It's like really badass. Like the Russian agents, they got nothing, and then you see the G.I. Joes are on the way. Like this is almost like like a Tarantino thing or something, you know, and like Reservoir Dogs walk. Like it's the 4 of them all walking together, and they got their guns, they're ready to go. Breaker is popping his gum. Snake Eyes is looking, you know, real scary. He's wearing Quinn's necklace of skulls, of like weasel skulls. It's a necklace of weasel skulls. And there's like a little flourish here that I really like. It is like these are like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. They're basically going to mow these guys down. Is the implication? And by ending it there and not showing you, it makes it extra badass because maybe
so cool.
Maybe, you know, it would have been a little more toned down if they actually showed it. But and then I love what they did with this final panel, and it makes me wonder. Because it looks like they just kind of took the Snake Eyes figure from the previous panel and then just zoomed in on it a little bit. So I wonder if like the next panel was just like, you know, coming soon, next issue, this, or maybe there was something else there or whatever. But by kind of like repeating that image and zooming in on Snake Eyes, now we're starting to see Snake Eyes is really like coming to the fore.
Pay attention.
Yeah, pay attention to this guy. He's not the superstar yet, but he's like a little closer, you know, by the end of this issue, and that last bit really.
Yeah, the last thing you see is old Snake Eyes.
Him before you die, and then it's like, and then it says, you know, the end.
This is a great issue.
The appearance of Quinn. Quinn becomes like a favorite, and he's going to show up. He's going to be part of like the ongoing soap opera of G.I. Joe, and yeah, it's fun going through these. The next, issue 3, it's got like a bunch of robots and stuff. It's pretty fun,
Whoa.
And yeah, it's back. We had a little breather from the Cobra stuff. Now Cobra's back.
Oh,
you know?
hell yeah.
That's like the Pac-Man Ghost.
Oh,
so,
this is going to be great.
It's going to be
my
good.
God.
I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics. I am Stan, a graphic biography of the legendary Stan Lee, and Jack Kirby's Star Warriors, The Adventures of Adam Star and the Solar Legion. I'm also the author of WITCHMAN, a new superhero comic, which recently had a successful Kickstarter campaign.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And yeah, we'll see you next time for G.I. Jonesing on
G.I.
the Total
Jonesing.
Recall Show.